So I've been reviewing cartoons for an entire year now, and I could safely say that I've seen some of the absolute worst in history. Well, actually, the worst to me personally and my life experiences. That's why I decided to make this top 11 worst list an annual thing. For the past year, I've taken out cartoons and cartoon episodes that I personally had a vendetta against, mostly because those are the cartoon episodes that I knew about. If I did this list when things are all said and done, this would roughly be what it looks like, and I thought I'd save you all the disappointment. The rules are simple. I can put any animation that I've reviewed on here as long as it's 22 minutes or less. And I do mean any animation. Dusk's Dawn, Putting Your Hoof Down, Speed Demon, anything. These are the episodes that I reviewed that I've hated more than any other episode. Just thinking about them makes me cringe, and I am excited to give them yet another kick in the ass goodbye.
I am very fluent. Listen to me roll my R's. I rest my case.
Guys, I'm gonna tell you a little something you don't know about me. I hate Peggy fucking Hill. Sure, Buck Cluck stole the title of my most hated character in animation, but that doesn't automatically redeem Peggy F. Hill. Chances are that if you're anything like Peggy Hill in real life, I will hate your fucking guts, because she helped to shape the qualities that I like least in people in real life. Her gross stupidity and her insufferable egotism. What makes Lupe's revenge particularly terrible and infuriating is that it's so contrived just to let her keep both traits. Oh wait, let both of those traits get worse. Someone who thinks that they could speak better Spanish than the Mexican people needs to be knocked down a few pegs, if you know what I mean. What kills me about this episode is not only did Peggy F. Hill get away with kidnapping a child, but she actively thinks that she did nothing wrong. I don't mean she thinks that it just wasn't against the law. She thinks she was morally in the right. Not only that, but she gets out of the situation still thinking that she has an amazing grasp of the Spanish language and is still willing to shove it in other people's faces at will. If Peggy F. Hill learned that she wasn't the greatest fucking thing in the world, then this episode may have had a fucking point. Would it have hurt the episode to make her learn that she didn't have such a great grasp of Spanish? Oh wait, that would have stopped her from taking directions in Spanish in a later episode and getting her entire family lost, and we couldn't possibly have that now, could we? This is the end-all result of Flanderization. As you might have guessed, Peggy F. Hill was not this incompetent, egotistical, arrogant, and stupid at one point. It is essentially the worst thing that could happen with Flanderization tied up in one package of stupid. The plot is so incredibly contrived. People have told me that it takes 4 hours to get from Middle Texas to a rural Mexican village. So apparently Lupe was in a bus for 4 hours complaining to Peggy and another teacher who couldn't possibly recognize her. And neither of them noticed that they've never seen her before. I don't know if it's the same in Mexico, but there's a facet of American law where ignorance is not an excuse. Even if Peggy didn't know that she was kidnapping a child, she was still kidnapping a child. And then there's the subplot where a cop stalks and sexually harasses someone for comedy. No, gender doesn't make a difference. Both are wrong and both disgust me. I didn't complain about this in my actual review because Peggy F. Hill stole my focus, but the B-plot insulted and disgusted me. Never mind the double standard at play here. It's that the writers think we're supposed to feel sorry for the cop. See the episode holding on her defeated frown? What the hell? Look, I'm not going to feel sorry for someone abusing their power to frisk someone, sexually harass, and stalk them. I don't care who the fuck they are.
Poder ver que usted ser caballo razonable.
Have you ever read that Friendship is Magic fanfiction, Patty Cakes? It was originally supposed to be a parody of Cupcakes, but people found it even more terrifying. Patty Cakes is not terrifying. It's stupid. In it, Fluttershy kidnaps Rainbow, puts her in a diaper, and tries to mentally turn her into a baby. It's not horrifying because she succeeds in doing this in one afternoon of baby treatment. Alternatively, do you know what would make that idea terrifying? Ask the writers of SpongeBob, they figured it out.
For some fun?
Squidward gets turned into a baby by a semi-plausible method, a blow to the head. Let's get this out of the way first. Yeah, it's a ripoff of Rockabye Bivalve. Please, tell the Patty already shit over that episode a long time ago. No, what bothers me most about this episode is what a lot of people strangely seem to forget. Squidward is an adult. He's still an adult throughout the whole episode. The episode seems to play off some kind of uncanny fear. Yes, I know there's a whole fetish about this kind of thing, and I have nothing against the people who have that fetish. But this episode made me feel like I was watching their porn. Believe it or not, though, my biggest problem with this episode is all of the drool. It sounds weird, I know. But this episode makes me cringe more than House Fancy, Pineapple Fever, or even The Splinter. You are going to learn something about me after all. I have Asperger's syndrome. When you have Asperger's syndrome, certain things gross you out more than normal. Some people with it can't eat yellow food because the color yellow grosses them out. Do you know what grosses me out? A variety of things, but one of those things is drool. Yeah, this episode disgusts me more than Face Freeze and more than the Splinter, for that reason alone. I'm not going to say that this plot couldn't have worked, it worked in Rugrats, but the writers there knew how to show the cute side of babies. SpongeBob excels at disgust. I mean, you have Squidward, a grown adult, crap in his fucking pants! There are certain places you don't go unless you are writing the aforementioned fetish porn. I've said it many times before. Every show usually dishes out one major dud in its lifespan, whether it's a master at the business or not. I mean, Foster's has Everyone Knows It's Bendy, Ed, Edd n Eddy has If It Smells Like an Egg, Dexter's Lab has Dexter vs. Santa Claus. Normally I understand that, so for me to get offended by the dud, an episode needs to do something seriously wrong, and one episode managed to do just that.
To the dimension of kids who improved the world by wishing they were never born.
I've said that this is my least favorite Animated Atrocities review. Now, any review that doesn't clock in at least 5 minutes disappoints myself and makes me feel like I'm cheating you guys. But that alone wouldn't make a review my least favorite. Bridal Gossip is my least favorite MLP review because of some poor word choices. This is my least favorite Atrocity review because I didn't cut into this episode enough. It deserved so much more punishment than I gave this cruel-ass episode. Let's start with the concept, shall we? Timmy wishes that he was never born. And yeah, I know that a lot of kids wish that, but the full concept is that Timmy wishes he was never born, and the world is much better without him. Wait, not just better, like infinitely, amazingly better. This is to teach a lesson that you should never expect praise for what you do. Hello! That's a terrible moral! I mean, people should get compensation for their efforts, and it's unrealistic and cruel to believe that they shouldn't. Secondly, Timmy wasn't expecting compensation. He was sick and tired of people complaining about him spending his time, money, and effort. Now, the word contrived is thrown around a lot, but nothing fits the definition more than this episode. What's worse is that every time a contrivance is thrown into the episode, it creates so many unfortunate implications that are bound to offend you no matter who you are. Francis is no longer a bully because Timmy was never born. So apparently Timmy was the only kid that Francis bullied. Oh wait, no he wasn't. Maybe Timmy caused Francis to be a bully. Oh wait, no he didn't. And the way this is worded makes it seem like Timmy is making someone's life worse by being the target of bullying. Tootie, the one person whose life revolves entirely around Timmy, is completely ignored for this half-ass story. Timmy's parents have a girl instead of him. First of all, just because you're not born doesn't mean someone else gets born in your place. It doesn't work that way. And because that child is a girl, you send even more mixed messages. I'm not the only one who thinks that someone can't screw up this badly, right? I mean, there's not thinking about what you're writing, and then there's making It's a Wishful Life. But do you know what makes this episode unwatchably bad? It's Jorgen. Look, I know that he's a sadist, but the amount of glee he's getting from watching Timmy suffer is uncomfortable and disturbing. And even the concept of the realm of children who make the world better by wishing they were never born. That gives the Stay Home for the Ugly a run for its money. Speaking of Doug Walker, in his words, what twisted pig shit comes up with that kind of stuff? And why does it look like hell? I mean, if you're making the world better by what's essentially your suicide, shouldn't it look rewarding? Or is an average kid like Timmy that much of an ass that he deserves to go to hell?
This is like the end of an era.
Mom, is Brian gonna be okay?
Seth MacFarlane, you're absolutely hilarious! Did you guys hear? Brian's back! Who could have predicted that this was one of the most insulting ratings traps in animation history? Yep, I accurately predicted that Family Guy would bring back Brian, but then again, so did everybody else! So, tell me guys, since I haven't watched the show since, has Brian become worse than he was before? Yeah, it was pretty much an ingenious plan. Take the character that everyone hates, kill him in the most brutal way possible, make everyone feel unnaturally sorry for him, and give him a license to do whatever the hell you want with him in the future in the eyes of the public. Don't like Brian telling you that religious people are all bigoted idiots? Don't complain about it, or we'll kill him off. Again. And this was definitely planned from the beginning, despite all those petitions that circulated around the web. A Family Guy episode takes about 6 months to make, believe it or not. But even if that wasn't the case, a whole season of a cartoon is usually done before the first episode even airs. What I'm trying to say is that I'm like 99.9 repeating% sure that Christmas Guy was planned and made before Life of Brian even aired. And yeah, there's no proof that MacFarlane had anything to do with Family Guy's other infamous flops like Seahorse Seashell Party and Not All Dogs Go to Heaven. Well, here's your proof on this one. Yeah, I can blame him entirely for this one, and I'm going to. For what it's worth, Christmas Guy is far worse than this episode, if only for a joke that made me never want to drink eggnog ever again, and a first half subplot they could literally be cut out and leave the rest of the episode unchanged. I seriously considered reviewing it, but then I thought, No. This was obviously a publicity stunt. He's expecting people to start bashing the whole thing, getting us to trend on social media, and all kinds of crap like that. If I reviewed it, it would feel like I'd be playing into his trap. I hate to say that I'm never going to review a Family Guy episode again, because let's be honest here, I can get just as much material out of this show as I could from SpongeBob. I probably will review Family Guy again, but I'm definitely going to avoid publicity traps like this as much as possible. It's one thing to create buzz on your terrible show by doing some terrible things by accident. It's an entirely different thing to do it on purpose. Forced wouldn't begin to describe this episode. Most episodes that try to tug at your heartstrings at least have feelings there to begin with, and they don't take you through the death of your own dog in order to elicit sympathy for an asshole. And they certainly don't replace the asshole with an annoying stereotype who is functionally the same in every single way. Despite what I've said, I do feel sorry for the people who signed petitions, begged Seth to bring Brian back, or even went so far as getting tattoos to commemorate Brian's passing, because this display is disgusting in the truest sense of the word.
Oh my God,
Yes, Fritz. I'm afraid that our Brian is dead.
One complaint that I frequently get is, why do I take cartoons so seriously? So what if there aren't people yelling at writers creating pandering bullshit for kids? I mean, it's just animation. Because if there aren't people who are doing this kind of stuff, you get things like Madball's gross jokes.
we need something that will really sum things up. Something that says it all.
I feel if there weren't people taking the animation industry seriously, this is what it'll become. This here is the worst stereotype of cartoons. Stupid, juvenile jokes, horrid colors, attempting to gross you out, no plot, no characters, just barely moving pictures. This doesn't treat its audience like idiots, it treats them like shit. Literal excrement. It believes that what it's pitifully attempting to distract is disgusting, has the barest breath of intelligence, and that its only prerequisite for entertainment is that its schlock needs to be animated, provided that this could be called animation. This is the end-all result of believing that animation is just for kids, and the creators not knowing the slightest thing about children. Watching this shit is probably some level of hell. Unlike, say, The Splinter, which forces you to look away from what's going on, this doesn't. Instead, it forces your endurance. You struggle to make it through with your brains intact. I was able to make it through one sitting, but please do not try that at home. I am a trained professional and I've had years of experience. This lacks so little substance that I'm not sure what to talk about. When you get down to it, all it is what can laughably be called skits. No, a skit is a variety of jokes around one scenario. Each segment here is one joke stolen from a dollar store joke book, hammered into the ground, and then to the center of the earth. At least the G3 episodes were pleasant to look at. I mean when the characters weren't staring into my soul. You guys still can't have it! Yeah, that's right, I could have put any of the G3 episodes that weren't a very minty Christmas on this list. But I didn't. Let me let that sink in. This was unpleasant to look at. The colors are bland and ugly, because that's what disgusting little boys like, isn't it? Her. The animation here is hideous. In fact, it's barely animated. Look, I've said that I don't understand gross-out humor in the slightest, but I do know where it is, and it's not here. If it was here, then this piece of shit would have some purpose. Whenever people tell you that you're taking cartoons too seriously, show them this. Tell them that this is what will happen again and again if people don't take cartoons seriously. Think about it. Trying to entertain stereotypes of children and throw as little budget at it as possible in an attempt to get a few bucks from parents who don't care about the quality of their children's entertainment. Speaking of parents, your kids deserve better than this. My worst enemies deserve better than this, but I digress. Kids who grow up watching shit like this tend to grow up to watch shit as an adult. It's for kids is not an excuse. Toy Story is for kids. The Lion King is for kids. The Wizard of Oz is for kids. Your target audience is not an indicator of your quality. That being said, not all the schlock in the world was made for kids.
Yes!
I'm bored.
Do you know what else isn't an excuse? It was made online. Especially the assholes charged money for it. To date, there are only two things that I've reviewed that I've needed multiple sittings to review. Chicken Little, an hour-and-a-half movie that was the worst movie I've ever seen, and the Control-Alt-Delete trilogy. Something that doesn't even clock in at 15 minutes with 3 title sequences. That is impressive, and not in any of the good ways. Before we continue, I want to show you a few things. This is an episode of Ed's World, an online web show that was originally made by one person on what I can assume came out of his own pockets, and may he rest in peace. This is Tarboy, another animated short made by a student. Elephant's Dream, made to be a tech demo. But comparing CAD to any of those is incredibly insulting to those other animations. Hell, it's insulting to Dusk's Dawn, or that second greatest first animation that you found on the back corner of Newgrounds. Most of those other things were indie productions that had pretty much no budget. This was made by a previously established company and had a budget. How much, I don't know, because any information about the series, as far as I can tell, has been purged from the internet. Hopefully out of shame. There's a few things I do know. To view one episode of the show, it would cost you $3. And since this is a three-parter, it would cost you $9 total. This was to, quote, pay the professional animation studios and voice actors to make this happen.
Tell them I was killed by video game.
It would also, quote, have a professional voice cast and a lengthy development period, and was of sufficient quality to be comparable to that of a televised animated series. What animated series are we talking about here? Bubsy? Actually, that didn't make my list either. One of the hardest things doing what I do is showing you guys how painful something is while sparing you the actual pain. Sometimes that's clearly not possible. I mean, I can tell you that the Bubsy cartoon uses nails on the chalkboard, but you won't know how bad it actually is until you actually watch it for yourself. As you can tell, this problem usually persists in sound, which is why I often glance over terrible songs I come across. However, those professional voice actors did such a piss-poor job here that there is no way I could properly convey how migraine-inducing this is without showing you the whole damn thing. Yeah, I'd probably be an asshole if I started doing my normal shtick against projects of passion with a shoestring budget. But when you make all of these wonderful claims and come out with a project that's objectively worse than Dusk's Dawn, and then charge money for it, you deserve all the scorn and hatred that you get. The jokes are shit, the plot is shit, and horribly dated. And the characters, I would say that they were shit too, but it's hard to tell through the broken audio and uncanny movements. And according to Rowdy C from TV Trash, this is one of the better episodes of Control Alt Delete. Excuse me while I strangle myself with my neighbor's pet ferret. Did you guys know that modern SpongeBob actually has fans? I mean, not just the people who tolerate what SpongeBob has become, but actually enjoy the show for what it is. Yeah, they actually enjoy SpongeBob for what it is. Here's a professional DVD reviewer calling the Splinter and Boating Buddies some of SpongeBob's best episodes, praising the toenail scene in House Fancy, and calling Plankton's Regular one of the better episodes featuring Plankton. People have even come to me saying that they liked One Course Meal. They never told me why, but they said they liked it. But there is one particular episode that no one, and I mean no one, has anything good to say about. What is there left to say about this shit? No, seriously. Look, I despise animal abuse, and attempting to use it for comedy like this just makes my blood boil. How blind, deaf, and stupid could someone be? Flanderization does not begin to describe SpongeBob in this episode. Out of character does not begin to describe SpongeBob in this episode. There's only one word that I can use to describe SpongeBob in this episode. Evil! Yes, evil, shut up. Yeah, I'm just imagining that SpongeBob did know that Puffy Fluffy was a monster the whole time, and was attempting to teach Gary a lesson for trying to enjoy his time away from him. Would that be worse than what we actually got? Well, in that scenario, I could actually understand SpongeBob's actions. Yeah, he's not watching TV there. He's watching Puffy Fluffy tear up Gary's stuff. Infuriatingly enough, that's the only possible way that this episode can make any semblance of sense. This episode is just cruel and sadistic. Gary is repeatedly abused for no fucking reason in a plot that I've never seen done right. The plot where someone gets a replacement cannot be done correctly, so stop using it. At best, you got the character being replaced uncharacteristically jealous because the plot demands it. At worst, at the absolute worst, you got this piece of shit. There's Kafka comedy, and then there's this. I've seen this kind of stuff on the Gregory Horror Show. I've seen lesser stuff on the Gregory Horror Show, a show that's supposed to psychologically torment its characters. And Gregory Horror Show is aimed at adults. SpongeBob is aimed at 7 to 12-year-old kids. And I don't fucking care what the writers say. You know, I have a lot of younger cousins that come by and watch SpongeBob, and every time I'm in an interesting position. Do you hope that they get one of the more tolerable episodes, like, say, Overbooked?
This is what I got. Sorry about the scabies.
Honestly, it's one of the less harmful things you've done to me. Or do you hope they'll get something like the Splinter, so their parents see what's going on and never let them watch the show again? I mean, that has got to be what's going on here, right? Most parents just don't know what SpongeBob has been up to for the past 9 years. I mean, that's the only possible explanation I can think about why any parent would let their kid watch shit like this, or even this. Oh wait, I haven't reviewed that episode yet. I mean, if you watch it, if you even like it, fine. But please, show your kid something a little less scarring, like, I don't know, Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Cheesehead. Can't you see I'm trying to get run over?
Yeah, you all saw this one coming. The only surprise here that it's only number 4 in what you could pretty much call the worst cartoon episodes that I've ever seen in my entire life. Look, it's rare that I get offended personally. Even some of the episodes on this list don't offend me personally. But this crosses my line, and that's one line you do not want to cross. I'm not going to say that you can't use suicide comedically. I've seen it done comedically before. But if you're going to try to do it as a fucking adult. And don't do it for kids. Yeah, I know the writers say that they're writing squarely for adults. I don't give a shit. Or alternatively, you could take this very real issue seriously. I've reviewed episodes of kid shows that take on this kind of stuff seriously, like The Mask, or Helg on the Couch, or even Flights to the Finish. Even if you don't treat it with the dignity that it deserves, at least try. I mean, the whole concept of this episode is that Krabs drives his archenemy to attempt suicide, and we're either supposed to root for him or find it funny because these guys say that he's the good guy, and the Plankton's the bad guy. It's not just that they're showing suicide, but they're showing it in such a realistic way here. I mean, attempting to get run over by a bus, a truck, or a train is a very real method of attempting suicide, and being stalked and harassed is a very real prompt of suicide. People attempt to commit suicide when they feel trapped and like there's no other options, that there's no point in living. That's probably the biggest problem here. They portray suicide realistically so that they can mock it. And SpongeBob doesn't help Plankton go through with it because...
I'm sorry, Plankton, but that flies in the face of my good nature.
I don't know why people defend this asshole. I mean, there's the aforementioned A Pal for Gary. Then there's Choir Boys.
This giant pothole ought to get his attention. I'm sorry, Plankton, but that flies in the face of my good nature. Now I have a captive audience. I'm sorry, Plankton, but that flies in the face of my good nature. But that flies in the face of my good nature. Squidward, could you keep it down, please? Trying to find my starting pitch here.
A Breath of Fresh Squidward, Good Neighbors. Look, I'm just off writing the top 10 worst Squidward torture porn script. I can go on all day. I mean, sure, his good nature crops up here and there.
Hey! Squidward! Well, at least we know he's still alive.
But for the most part, the Cubic Creeper here is pure evil. I said shut up! I get it, SpongeBob, you used to be funny. Another defense I hear for this episode is that some species of whales do, in fact, eat plankton. Yeah, I guess watching Finding Nemo doesn't certify you to be a marine biologist. First of all, that doesn't exactly excuse the cannibalism that wasn't just implied, but outright stated. Sure, episodes in the past have used cannibalism as a joke, but it was never a plot point, because not only is it disturbing, it doesn't make any sense logically. I mean, we've seen sharks. Do they just go around eating other citizens of Bikini Bottom? Oh, who am I kidding? As long as they're not littering, the citizens of Bikini Bottom can do whatever the hell they want. Secondly, I've done some research, and yeah, certain species of whales do in fact eat plankton. In my research, I've also found something else. Some species of whales also eat crabs. Yep, some species of whales eat fish, crabs, and even squids. Don't you fucking dare, or I will hunt you down and kill you. And you know what? Despite this fact, I still wouldn't want to see an episode where Pearl turns on Krabs and tries to eat him, even after one course meal, because that goes beyond sadistic. That's pretty much... I said shut up!
Frothy frappe? I can't think of any more food that starts with the letter C, SpongeBob.
Alright, so why is a stupid ratings trap worse than an episode that tries to use a realistic suicide for comedy? Through sheer lack of quality. Despite the atrocity that One Course Meal was, it told a story. I mean, it was one of the worst, most insulting, most mean-spirited stories I've ever seen in my life, but it was still a story. In this episode, SpongeBob gets fired for a nickel. He walks back into the Krusty Krab sometime later and gets hired again. The end. Special over. Oh, I'm sorry, did I glance over something? I mean, something of substance. most of these 22 minutes, literally nothing happens. I said that waiting had more of a plot. You know that episode where SpongeBob stands by his mailbox for 7 minutes waiting for a mail-order toy? I meant it. Actually, this episode seems to be taking most of its cues from waiting. I mean, SpongeBob interacts with his quote-unquote friends in the same order. First, Patrick, who does absolutely nothing for either plot. Second, Sandy, who in this episode proves that she's more deplorable than the idea of Plankton by trying to feed freeloaders toxic sludge because, I don't know, she can. Let's count how many episodes that this special rips off. We already got Waiting. The title is a rip-off of Mrs. Puff You're Fired. Mr. Krabs fires an employee over the loss of a coin, just like Can You Spare a Dime. By the way, in that episode he fired Squidward, a worse employee, over the loss of a coin that had sentimental value. SpongeBob's consistent crying could be a ripoff of any number of episodes, but let's go with all the glitters. The concept of Mr. Krabs firing SpongeBob comes from, well, let's go with Welcome to the Chum Bucket. Mr. Krabs' cooking is about on par with his talent in Squilliam Returns. There's the whole plot of Krusty Dogs, which is used 3 times. The concept of this episode is also stolen from Bummer Vacation. SpongeBob's mug, and the fact that this is a lackluster episode used as a rating strap, comes from the best day ever. Sandy's a jerk, for science, just like in To Save a Squirrel. The ending sequence is not only ripped off from the beginning of this episode, but it suspiciously resembles the ending of Help Wanted. SpongeBob can't cook anything but Krabby Patties, a problem that carries over from The Big Switch. The disturbing face. Well, the first one that I can recall comes from just one bite. By the way, it's not exactly fair to that episode, but I do blame it for every disturbing face that the show has shot me since then. SpongeBob invents another food, just like in Patty Hype, and probably many, many more that I couldn't find. As you can see, they're not just ripping off the classics anymore. They're ripping off the mediocre or even the bad episodes, almost like it's a game to see how much they can recycle in one episode. If you don't know what this means, I'll tell you right now. SpongeBob You're Fired signifies that SpongeBob SquarePants is now eating its own excrement. And yet, somehow worse than that implies. This episode is a culmination of everything that's wrong with modern SpongeBob. There is no creativity, there is no originality, the characters are beyond characters of the stereotypes of what they once were. It mixes annoyance and cruelty with comedy. Gross-out faces are used without knowing why they ever worked in the first place. You know how they say when a show has run its course, it's on life support? This episode proves that the life support is dead.
Not your problem.
Do you think it's possible that this family can't survive without some sort of lightning rod to absorb all the dysfunction?
One thing that I do very well is explain why morals are bad without explaining why they affected me personally. I mean, I told you guys why I thought the moral of One Bad Apple was terrible, without telling you guys that I got pepper sprayed by a bully for telling an adult that I was being bullied. And I told you why the moral in Sea or Seashell Party was so bad, without telling you that I grew up in similar living conditions, and if I followed their moral, there was nothing more than an excuse to justify their meg bashing, I'd probably be dead. It's a message that tries to make abuse victims feel noble for staying in abusive relationships. I've said this in my actual review, but taking someone else's shit and abuse isn't noble. If your family needs quote-unquote a lightning rod to function, then it probably shouldn't be a family at all. In fact, it's not a family. If someone is abusing you, the only thing you owe them is a swift kick out of your life. You deserve better than them, no matter who you are. Yeah, I don't care if this was just an attempt to justify abusing Meg. The fact that it comes across as immoral is not only insulting, it's actually dangerous. Like, someone could actually get themselves killed by following this stupid-ass moral. I don't want to hear it's a parody either, because it's not fucking funny.
Guess crying does solve your problems after all.
Yeah, that's a parody too. I tend to not like bottle episodes because the writers are forced to use their characters' imaginations, and very rarely are any media characters truly imaginative, but our clever writers have a wonderful way around that. Let's use hallucinogens. The episode's entire budget was blown on taking us through Wonderland's hell. Why? I have no fucking idea. Family Guy is primarily a comedy show and always has been. And needless to say, this demented shit isn't funny. It's not compelling either. Hell, it isn't even shocking anymore. After Life of Brian, let's just call it what it is. Desperate. I think it's safe to say that an episode about characters trying to entertain themselves without television shouldn't be as boring as being trapped in a house during a power outage. Yeah, this episode fluctuates between being boring, infuriating, and depressing. There's not one enjoyable or even tolerable moment through this whole miserable pile of shit. Look, I know that most people know better than to listen to a show that spends half an episode with a baby's skull cracked open, but this episode's mere existence disgusts me on a deep personal level. Look, Family Guy saying that all religious people are bigoted idiots is offensive, yes. But even if someone believes that lesson, they won't bring any harm on themselves. If they believed this moral, like I said, their life would get substantially worse. Yeah, quite frankly, that's disgusting. And it's boring. Oh, God, is it boring. When the highlight of your episode is pitiful attempts to shock and disturb your audience, then you've done something incredibly wrong, and you should rethink your career as a living human being. When I started reviewing Animated Atrocities, I was 100% sure that Seahorse Seashell Party would be the worst cartoon episode that I could ever possibly come across. I mean, there could not be anything worse than telling abuse victims that they should stay in abusive relationships for their abuser's benefit. Take it to Jonah Hill to prove me wrong.
Anything really? Pictures or a
Videotape, it's a video sex tape. That's what I have.
Sex tape?
Alan Gregory is something that I don't normally encounter, even watching some of the worst cartoons of all time. What you'll notice is that most of the episodes on this list revolve around characters doing something heinous while you're supposed to laugh at them. Or worse, feel sympathy for them. That's the whole premise of this show. Give screen time to the most horrible little shit you could ever conceive, and have them play off characters that are equally or somehow more horrible, or just plain boring. The premise of this particular episode is that a 7-year-old child is trying to make a sex tape with his principal who's 10 times his age. Yeah, I guess I'll reconsider my earlier statement that you can make anything funny, because I don't know anyone in hell that you can make that the slightest bit humorous. It's not funny, it's just disgusting and wrong. Any attempt at a joke on this is disgusting and wrong. Yeah, Alan thinks that one of his parents raping the other is plain sex. Cause, you know, that's absolutely a knee slapper. The show was so bad that just hearing Jonah Hill's voice is enough to bring up scars.
You should come by sometime to work out.
Ahem. The show is obviously a ploy to appeal to Family Guy's audience by putting Stewie Griffin in the limelight while not understanding what made Stewie Griffin a funny character to begin with. You see, if you're going to make a character an unlikable douchebag, you've got to make him a funny unlikable douchebag. There's nothing funny or witty about what any of these characters do. They're just horrible to each other. And what's worse is that you're supposed to feel sorry for them. Not helping is the hideous character designs. I mean, with Control-Alt-Delete, I can at least recognize the characters as human. Does anyone have any idea what species Julie is supposed to be? I mean, there is no way for a human to look like that without some severe radiation poisoning. The oblongs look more realistic than them, and they're supposed to look disfigured. All of the background characters go through the same few frames of animation like no one would notice. Jonah Hill, I want to introduce you to the Brony community, who has given every background character a full-fledged story and personality based on what they were doing. Beyond that, even your common viewer will notice that no one ever moves in the background. I keep saying that SpongeBob SquarePants has lasted too long. This show has lasted way too much longer. This show has lasted way too much longer than SpongeBob, Family Guy, Final Fantasy, and any other franchise suffering from seasonal rot, and it only lasted 7 fucking episodes. That was about 300 episodes too many. Will I review the other episodes? Is there really a purpose to it? I'd like to keep my number 1 on this list a surprise next year.
There are people here who may intimidate. Acting frightening, they could manipulate.
You cursed, stupid man!
Like a stubborn, foolish swine, they merely yell and whine, and at last this case will finally unwind.
Some attorneys are dishonest, they'll do anything to win, but now I know